The sun, a raw fist, beats down upon the border patrol station in the desert. Dust, fine as powdered bone, coats everything, the corrugated metal walls, the sun-bleached patrol vehicles, the very air you breathe. It settles on your skin, grit between your teeth, a constant reminder of the stripped-back existence you've chosen, or perhaps, that chose you. You lean against the searing hood of a decommissioned utility truck, a map spread across its pitted surface, tracing invisible lines with a calloused thumb. The wind, a dry whisper, tugs at the brim of your wide-brimmed hat, threatening to steal it. You grip it tighter, your gaze scanning the horizon, not for anything specific, but for the absence of it. The vast, indifferent expanse of sand and scrub, punctuated by distant, shimmering heat haze, mirrors the landscape within you. Your uniform, once crisp and sharp, is now faded, softened by countless washes in the unforgiving sun. The weight of the badge you once wore, a tangible symbol of purpose, is a phantom ache on your chest. You remember the glint of it, the authority it lent, the way it felt like a shield against chaos. Now, there is only the quiet hum of the generator and the distant, tinny squawk of a radio you rarely engage with. A memory, sharp as broken glass, pricks at the edges of your consciousness. The rain, cold and relentless, blurring the city lights. The body, sprawled, a crumpled marionette. Random act of violence, they'd called it. You hadn't believed it then, and the doubt, a persistent parasite, still gnaws. It was the first thread that began to unravel everything, the initial tremor before the earthquake that swallowed your career, your reputation, your very name. Marcus Thorne. A name that now tasted like ash. You pick up a small, smooth stone, turning it over in your fingers, its coolness a fleeting comfort against the pervasive heat. The simplicity of this life, tracking footprints in the sand, monitoring the distant drone of light aircraft, offered a kind of brutal honesty. It was a stark contrast to the labyrinthine deceit that had become your world. A plume of dust, far off on the single track leading to the station, catches your eye. It's too large for a standard patrol vehicle, too determined for a casual visitor. Your hand instinctively drops to the worn leather holster at your hip, the familiar weight of the sidearm a small comfort. You haven't needed it for anything beyond target practice in months, but old habits, like old wounds, never truly heal. The vehicle resolves into a sleek, black sedan, out of place in this desolate landscape, like a predator in a flock of doves. It pulls to a silent stop, kicking up a final cloud of dust that hangs in the still air. The driver's side window hums down, revealing the face of a man you vaguely recognize, not from personal acquaintance, but from the periphery of your former life. He doesn't offer a hand, doesn't even smile. Marcus Thorne, he states, his voice a low, precise instrument, cutting through the drone of the desert. We need to talk. You push off the truck. Your movement's economical, a coiled tension beneath the surface of your apparent calm. About what? The question is flat, devoid of curiosity. A shield. He removes his sunglasses, revealing eyes that are sharp, assessing, like a hawk's. The journalist. Amelia Vance. The one that had led to the official reprimand, the internal investigation, the slow, agonizing dismantling of your career. That case is dead, you say, your voice rougher than you intended. It was declared a random mugging. Case closed. Not anymore, the stranger counters, his gaze unwavering. New information has surfaced. Information that links her murder, not to a random street crime, but to something far more extensive. something reaching into the highest levels. You feel a tremor, a faint, almost imperceptible shift deep within you. It's the stirring of a dormant beast, the ghost of the detective you once were. You try to push it down, to maintain the carefully constructed wall of indifference. This world, with its polished lies and its brutal truths, was no longer yours. "I'm out," you state, turning to walk away. Towards the shade of the small, uninviting office. "You have the wrong man." "Do I?" he asks, his voice following you. And it intersects directly with the current presidential campaign of Senator Elias Thorne. The name, Thorne, echoes in your mind, a cruel twist of fate. Elias Thorne. A rising political star, charismatic, powerful. The kind you'd been ridiculed for even suggesting. Amelia Vance was investigating them, the stranger continues, sensing your hesitation, pressing the advantage, he had something. Marcus. Something that threatened to expose them all. And whatever she found, it's connected to your downfall. The sun feels hotter, the air thicker. This was about everything. The injustice that had festered within you, the bitter taste of betrayal. The only one who still carries the ghost of that investigation. And the only one who might be able to finish what she started. Your gaze drifts from the stranger's face to the distant, shimmering horizon, then back to the sleek, black car, a stark symbol of the world you'd abandoned. The isolation of the desert, once a refuge, now felt like a cage. A chance at redemption. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken promise, and a terrifying, exhilarating danger. The determined glint in your eyes, long buried, flickers to life, a small, defiant spark in the vast, indifferent desert. The desert wind, a phantom sculptor, tugs at the edges of your shirt, whispering forgotten names against your ear. The sleek black car idles, a predator in waiting, its polished surface mirroring the stark, indifferent sky. The stranger's face, a study in controlled calm, offers no easy answers, only the stark choice laid before you. Redemption. The word echoes in the vast silence, a siren song to a soul long adrift. You feel the familiar tremor of doubt, a ghost limb aching from the wound of your past. To step back into that world, to reopen old scars, feels like a betrayal of the solitude you've meticulously constructed. Yet, beneath the layers of cynicism and self-imposed exile, a flicker ignites, not of eagerness, but of a desperate, gnawing need. Only consequence. And perhaps opportunity. He gestures towards the passenger door, a silent invitation. The air thickens with unspoken promises and perilous unknowns. You take a slow, deliberate breath, the scent of dust and distant creosote filling your lungs. You walk towards the car, each step a reluctant surrender, a defiant reclamation. The door opens with a soft thud, and you slide into the plush leather, the scent of new car mingling with the faint, metallic tang of an unspoken threat. The world outside blurs as the car glides forward, leaving behind the shimmering horizon and the remnants of your self-imposed purgatory. The drive is a silent meditation, the landscape a blur of ochre and rust. You watch the sun dip, painting the sky in fiery hues, a prelude to the long night ahead. The destination arrives without fanfare, a squat, utilitarian structure rising incongruously from the vast expanse. It's an unlikely place for such a clandestine meeting, a testament to the stranger's reach, or perhaps, a deliberate choice to emphasize your detachment from any official channels. Inside, the air is cool, sterile, carrying the faint scent of stale coffee and cleaning solution. The stranger leads you down a sparsely lit corridor, past offices where a few agents eye you with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. They know you, or rather, they know the ghost of Marcus Thorne, the man who fell from grace. You are ushered into a small, windowless room. A single metal table dominates the space, illuminated by a harsh fluorescent light that hums above. On the table, a stack of worn folders, bound with faded string, awaits. Their edges are dog-eared, their contents thick with the dust of forgotten years. Your first step, the stranger says, his voice low, is to look at what was missed. The murder of the journalist, Amelia Vance. Dismissed as a random act of violence. We believe otherwise. You approach the table, your fingers tracing the rough texture of the top folder. Amelia Vance. The name pricks at a dormant memory. A brilliant mind, a relentless pursuer of truth, whose demise had been a footnote in the sensational headlines of your own downfall. You remember the initial reports, the quick closure, the official narrative that always felt too neat, too convenient. You pull the first folder open. The top sheet is a faded photograph, Amelia Vance, her eyes bright with an almost defiant intelligence, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips. She looks younger in the photo than you remember from the news reports, full of an unburdened vitality. Methodically, you begin to sift through the documents. Crime scene reports, witness statements, forensic analyses, all the dry, technical language that once formed the bedrock of your world. You see the familiar patterns, the meticulous details, the endless pursuit of facts. But beneath the surface, a disquieting current begins to stir. The original lead detective was thorough, you observe, running a finger over a detailed diagram of the crime scene. But focused. Too focused, perhaps, on the obvious. The stranger nods, leaning against the doorframe, a silent sentinel. The obvious is often the most convenient lie. You find Eleanor's personal effects inventory. A worn leather satchel, a crumpled notebook, a voice recorder. The contents of the notebook are transcribed, page after painstaking page. It's a labyrinth of observations, interviews, and cryptic notes. Names and dates, some familiar from the era, others completely alien. A hastily scrawled line at the bottom of a page detailing a meeting with a minor government official, re. Argent Meridian Holdings. Link to Evergreen Initiative project funding? Check campaign contributions for Sterling. You pause, your breath catching. Argent Meridian. It's a seemingly innocuous investment firm, recently featured in financial news, lauded for its philanthropic contributions to a major environmental program. And Evergreen Initiative, that's the flagship program of Senator Sterling, the very politician currently mounting a formidable presidential campaign. The original investigation had dismissed this note as an unrelated tangent, a journalist's typical wide net. But now, through the lens of the stranger's revelation, a new, disturbing pattern begins to emerge. The subtle connections, once invisible, now shimmer with a sinister glow. You flip through more pages. Another note, tucked away in the very last few entries of the notebook, less than 24 hours before Eleanor's murder. It's a single word, circled multiple times, almost aggressively kestrel. A shiver traces your spine. Kestrel. Not a person, not a place, but a code word, or perhaps a clandestine operation. The name had never surfaced in any public report regarding Amelia Vance's death. It's a deliberate omission, a buried detail. The journalist wasn't just investigating a politician, he was digging into the very foundations of his power. You look up, your gaze meeting the stranger's. The hum of the fluorescent light seems to grow louder, the sterile air suddenly charged. The past and the present intertwine, a venomous knot beginning to tighten. And now, you see them. The name, Kestrel, a phantom echo from a buried file, pulls you back to the parched, unforgiving canvas of the desert. 8 years have carved deeper lines into the landscape, yet the memory of Eleanor Vance's brutal end remains a raw, unhealed wound in your own history. You stand now where they found her, a desolate stretch of scrubland, a forgotten whisper on the wind. The sun, a malevolent eye in the vast blue, beats down, baking the earth into a mosaic of cracked clay. The crime scene tape, long since disintegrated, has left no trace. The forensic tent, a temporary shroud, exists now only as a faded impression on the sparse, resilient flora. You remember the official narrative, spun with such conviction, a random act of violence, a tragic misstep in the wrong place. But the ghost of Kestrel now claws at that neat conclusion, demanding a different story. You kneel, your hands sifting through the gritty soil near a cluster of sun-bleached sandstone rocks. These were close to her body, you recall, their surfaces meticulously swept for evidence, their crevices probed for fibers. But what if the original search, constrained by a predetermined narrative, missed the subtle, the coded, the deliberately hidden? Your gaze, honed by years of sifting through deceit, now seeks not what was obvious, but what was concealed. The wind whips grit into your face, a gritty caress, but your focus remains unbroken, a desperate magnet to the past. The station itself, a stark, functional block of concrete and steel, rises like a defiant fist against the vast, indifferent landscape. His eyes, the color of faded denim, narrow imperceptibly as you step across the threshold. "Marcus Thorne," he says, his voice a gravelly rumble, betraying no warmth. "Haven't seen your face around these parts in a long time. I'm here about Eleanor Vance," you state, cutting through the pleasantries that neither of you truly expect. A muscle twitches in his jaw. "That case is closed, Thorne. Random. Tragic. End of story. Everyone signed off on it." His words are clipped, definitive, yet a subtle tension hums beneath them. "Was it, though?" you press, leaning slightly against the doorframe, trying to project casual persistence. "You were one of the first on scene. Did anything ever feel off? Out of place?" He pauses, his gaze drifting to the grimy window, then back to you. "We followed protocol. Every lead. Every damn piece of evidence. The brass pushed for a quick wrap. Said it was an isolated incident. Less panic that way." He doesn't look at you directly when he says brass pushed, and the omission of why hangs heavy in the air. "And Kestrel," you ask, watching his face for any flicker of recognition. "Does that name ring any bells?" His eyes snap to yours, sharp and suddenly guarded. A shadow crosses his weathered features, fleeting but unmistakable. "Never heard it. What's it mean to you?" The question is a shield, a deflection. "It's in a file," you explain, keeping your voice even. "A hidden one. Related to Vance." The veteran officer pushes away from his desk, rising slowly, his posture suddenly rigid. "Listen, Marcus. Some things are best left buried. You walk away from this. For your own good. The air between you thickens with unspoken warnings. You recall Eleanor's reputation, her meticulous nature, her uncanny ability to unearth truths others wanted buried. She wouldn't have vanished without a trace, not without leaving a breadcrumb. You return to the cluster of sandstone rocks, the same ones you had examined earlier. This time, you don't just observe, you feel, you probe, you dismantle the landscape with your gaze, seeking dissonance. But now, with a new lens of suspicion, you pry it loose, turning it over in your hands. The last rays of the dying sun catch a series of shallow etchings on its hidden surface. Not a natural fissure at all. A deliberate mark. A symbol, stylized and sharp, a bird in mid-flight, its angular wings forming a subtle, almost geometric K. It is undeniably a kestrel, rendered not as a creature of nature, but as a logo, a brand. And beneath it, etched with painstaking precision, a sequence of numbers, November 3, 2015. This was no random act. Eleanor Vance had stumbled upon something monumental, something that demanded a hidden message and a systemic cover-up. The forces at play are not merely powerful, they are pervasive, capable of silencing an officer, burying a crucial detail, and manipulating an entire investigation. Your breath hitches, not from fear, but from a surge of grim resolve. This isn't just about reclaiming your badge, Marcus. And you, a disgraced detective, are now the only one left to tend it. The veteran officer's words cling to you like desert dust, an unwelcome shroud. For everyone. The echo of his low, intense whisper reverberates not in your ears, but in the hollow space beneath your ribs. You feel the weight of his caution, a premonition pressed against your skin, yet it does not deter. Instead, it hardens the resolve that has been simmering, a quiet flame now roaring into a bonfire within you. This isn't just about redemption anymore, it's about a truth someone desperately wants to keep entombed. You drive, the engine a steady hum against the vast, indifferent canvas of the desert. The sun, a molten coin, hangs low, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and burning orange. You remember the reports, the vague notes about border activities and unusual land acquisitions that had seemed peripheral then, dismissed as a tangent in a case already spiraling into confusion. Now, they are a siren song. You approach a desk where a grizzled officer, his face a roadmap of sun-baked lines, looks up, his gaze assessing. You introduce yourself, Marcus Thorne, a name that still carries a faint, bitter tang, and explain your purpose, revisiting an old file, a cold case that refuses to stay frozen. He grunts, a sound that could mean anything, and directs you to a small, dusty records room. Fluorescent lights flicker, casting a sickly pallor over metal cabinets and stacks of archived reports. You pull the journalist's file, its manila cover brittle with age, and begin to sift through the fragments of her final days. Her meticulous handwriting, once a familiar sight, now feels like a ghostly presence guiding your fingers. Page after page, you trace her steps. There are interviews with local landowners, notes on water rights, and an intricate web of land deeds. Then, a pattern emerges, subtle at first, then glaringly obvious. You recognize the name of a key donor to the prominent politician's presidential campaign, a name you'd dismissed as mere background noise during your initial investigation. The journalist wasn't just investigating a local story. He was unraveling a much larger tapestry. Her focus on the politician wasn't just about his public policies, but about the clandestine machinations supporting his ascent. The holding company, a labyrinthine entity, had been quietly amassing strategic land in the border region. For what purpose? The question hangs in the air, heavy and foreboding. You pull out a magnifying glass, scrutinizing a faded aerial photograph the journalist had marked. A crude circle highlights a desolate patch of scrubland, miles from any major road. Beneath it, a single, underlined word, infrastructure. Not just land, then, but control of key access points, perhaps for a hidden network, an illicit pipeline, or a clandestine operation. They weren't just influencing politics, they were building an empire, brick by hidden brick, right under the noses of everyone, exploiting the very borders of the nation. The pieces click into place with a sickening thud. The journalist wasn't killed for a simple exposé. You see it now, a vast, intricate web, and you, Marcus Thorne, have just tugged at its very center. A sudden, sharp rap on the glass of the records room door startles you. The grizzled officer stands there, his expression unreadable. Closing up soon, detective. Long drive back. His eyes linger on the open file, on the highlighted photograph, for just a fraction too long. A prickle of unease, sharp as a cactus thorn, runs up your arm. They know you're here. They know what you're looking at. You step back into the fading light, the desert wind a low moan. Your car, a familiar shape, waits in the small parking lot. As you turn the key, the engine coughs to life, but a glint of movement in your rearview mirror catches your eye. It wasn't there when you arrived. You pull out, the gravel crunching under your tires, and the sedan follows, a silent predator. The road ahead is long, winding through an endless expanse of scrub brush and rock. You press the accelerator, your heart a drum against your ribs, not in fear, but in a desperate, primal surge of adrenaline. The sedan matches your speed, closing the distance. Its headlights flare, blinding you in your mirror. A jolt. A sickening grind of metal against metal. The sedan slams into your rear bumper, sending your car skidding. They're not trying to warn you. They're trying to finish you. Another impact, harder this time, sending your vehicle careening. The world outside becomes a dizzying kaleidoscope of dust and sky. You brace yourself, a silent prayer on your lips, for the inevitable impact. You swerve hard, a desperate maneuver, sending your car into a controlled spin, kicking up a blinding cloud of sand and gravel. The sedan, caught off guard, loses sight of you in the sudden tempest. You hear the screech of its tires, the frustrated roar of its engine. You hit the brakes, sliding to a stop behind a thick cluster of saguaros, your breath ragged, your hands clenched on the steering wheel. Your car is damaged, but you are alive. The veteran officer's warning, the journalist's sacrifice, the silent pursuit in the desert, all coalesce into a single, undeniable truth. You have found the threads of a conspiracy so deeply woven, so fiercely protected, that its architects are willing to kill to keep it hidden. And you, Marcus Thorne, are now directly in their sights. The game has begun. You walk away from this. You feel the tremor of it, a deep thrumming that promises danger, yet only solidifies your resolve. Burying it is precisely what they want. The drone of an ancient air conditioning unit struggles against the heat, a futile mechanical wheeze. Your fingers, calloused from years of gripping steering wheels and cold steel, trace the spine of a dusty evidence logbook. The pages are brittle, yellowed, a testament to the passage of time. The Border Patrol agent, a young woman with weary eyes and a perpetually tight ponytail, watches you from her desk, her gaze a mixture of curiosity and thinly veiled impatience. She's already given you the usual spiel about limited access, about archived materials requiring specific clearances. But you have a way of making people understand the urgency, the necessity of your presence. A faint, almost overlooked detail in her notes, recovered from a scorched hard drive, spoke of the border's hidden conduits. It was a thread, thin as spider's silk, but you followed it. Case File 18-047J. The journalist's name, stark and unforgiving, is printed there, next to a list of recovered items. Most are mundane: a wallet, a phone, a pen. But then, your eyes snag on a line, half-faded, almost dismissed, miscellaneous debris, small, carved wooden fragment. Miscellaneous debris. The words are a dull blade twisting in your gut. Your mind, a vast archive of forgotten details and suppressed memories, immediately conjures an image. Not of the journalist's body, not of the crime scene, but of a different desert, years prior, under a different sun. A place where the sand was stained not with blood, but with the sweat of an operation you led, codenamed Sandstone. A specific memory crystallizes, the unique markings, the intricate, almost tribal patterns carved into small wooden talismans used by the very network you were tasked to dismantle. They were identifiers, a silent language among their ranks. You had seen dozens of them, collected them as evidence, logged them meticulously. You remember presenting them to your then superior, the commander, a man whose judgment you trusted implicitly, a man who had guided your early career. He had assured you that every single piece of evidence from Operation Sandstone was accounted for, locked away in secure storage, its implications understood. Yet, here it is. A small, carved wooden fragment, dismissed as miscellaneous debris, found at the murder scene of the journalist. The journalist who was investigating hidden conduits. The journalist whose death was ruled a random act of violence. This fragment, if correctly identified then, would have connected the journalist's murder directly to the network you dismantled, directly to Operation Sandstone. It would have ripped open the facade of a random killing and exposed a deeper, more intricate web. Who logged it as miscellaneous debris? Not your team. Not anyone who knew the significance of such a piece. Someone deliberately obscured its true nature, its devastating implication. And who would have benefited from that obfuscation? Only those who wished to keep the connections buried. Only those who knew what that fragment truly represented. The commander. He would have known. He must have known. The man you looked up to, the man whose counsel you sought, the man who vouched for the integrity of Operation Sandstone's evidence chain. He swore everything was accounted for. But this fragment, now glowing with a malevolent significance, tells a different story. Your jaw tightens. The betrayal of trust. The deliberate misdirection. The young Border Patrol agent clears her throat, pulling you back to the present. Find what you were looking for, Marcus, she asks, her voice laced with a hint of weariness. You don't answer immediately. Your eyes are fixed on the entry, the simple words now burning holes through the page. A personal link. A decision he made. A trusted colleague. All of it, coalescing into a bitter truth. The ground beneath you, once firm, now feels like shifting sand. And the only way forward is to dig deeper, no matter how many graves you uncover, no matter whose name you find etched on the headstones. That image, a phantom limb of your past, now pulls you, a magnetic north, towards another desert. This one, vast and sun-scorched, stretches under a relentless blue, the air shimmering above the asphalt ribbon unspooling before your tires. The memory of failure, a persistent ache, fuels your journey, transforming regret into a sharp, focused intent. The heat, a physical weight, presses against the glass as you approach the designated coordinates. The air conditioning in your borrowed sedan struggles, a wheezing protest against the furnace outside. It's a low-slung building, weathered and sun-bleached, a sentinel of stone and glass in an ocean of sand. Dust devils dance in the distance, swirling specters mirroring the chaos brewing within your mind. You cut the engine, the sudden silence heavy, broken only by the ticking of cooling metal. Stepping out, the sun hits you like a fist, stealing your breath. The air is dry, tasting of grit and distance. A flagpole stands sentinel, its banner limp in the still heat. Inside, the cool air of the station is a shock, a reprieve that feels almost illicit. The fluorescent hum overhead is a dull throb against the desert's vast quiet. At the main desk, a uniformed officer, his face tanned and impassive, regards you with a weary gaze. "Can I help you?" he asks. His voice flat, accustomed to the mundane and the desperate. "Marcus Thorne," you state, pulling out your old, tarnished private investigator's license. A relic of a former life. "I'm looking into a cold case." The journalist. The one from years back, found near the old mine shaft. You watch his eyes for any flicker of recognition, any tell. He pauses, a slight tightening around his mouth. "That was a long time ago. Local jurisdiction. We just assisted on perimeter security." His hand hovers over a keyboard, a silent gesture of dismissal. "I have reason to believe the journalist was investigating something related to border operations," you press, your voice low, persuasive. "Something that might have involved a specific individual, a Mr. Blackwood, if that name rings a bell. Or a particular shipment that crossed the border around that time. Early March, roughly a decade ago." You lean forward, your gaze unwavering. The journalist's notes mentioned a priority manifest that passed through here, briefly flagged, then cleared. The officer's eyes narrow. He looks away, scanning the empty lobby, then back at you. "We don't keep records that far back for general inquiries. Everything's digital now, archived off-site. I'm not looking for general. I'm looking for specific. A physical ledger, perhaps. Something that might have slipped through the digital net. Sometimes, the old ways are the best ways for hiding things." You let the implication hang in the air, a silent challenge. The journalist was meticulous. They wouldn't have noted it if it wasn't significant. He sighs, a sound of resignation. "There's an old storage room in the back. Full of paperwork from before the system upgrade. Most of it's slated for destruction. I doubt you'll find anything." He gestures vaguely down a corridor. "But knock yourself out. Don't touch anything without supervision." The storage room is a tomb of forgotten bureaucracy, smelling of dust, mildew, and stale paper. Stacks of cardboard boxes, labeled with faded dates and cryptic codes, reach towards the low ceiling. You begin your methodical search, box by box, year by year, your fingers growing grimy with the sediment of forgotten lives. Hours crawl by, marked by the increasing ache in your back and the growing pile of discarded files. Its cover is unadorned, save for a stamp date, March 10th, March 24th. Your fingers tremble as you open it. The entries are handwritten, precise. You flip through pages, past routine vehicle crossings and minor contraband seizures, until your eyes snag on a specific entry, dated March 18th. It details a cargo manifest for a shipment of agricultural equipment and lists a consignee of Viridian Holdings LLC. Below it, a handwritten note in red ink, barely legible, priority, expedited clearance per directive from Office of Senator Thompson. Your breath hitches. Senator Thompson. The very same prominent politician now running for president. The journalist's last, unfinished article hinted at a connection between Thompson's early career and suspicious land deals, but it was always vague, unproven. Now, this ledger provides a concrete link. You scan further down the entry. Below agricultural equipment, a smaller, almost hidden line item, contained within, specialized components, Type A. And then, the critical detail, hastily scribbled recipient contact, Echelon Group Liaison, codename Phoenix. Echelon Group. The name hits you like a physical blow. This isn't just a clue, it's a blueprint. That agricultural equipment was a cover. The journalist wasn't killed for a random act of violence, they were murdered because they were too close to exposing this precise connection, this specific transaction facilitated by Thompson and the Echelon Group. The very fabric of justice, indeed, feels like it's unraveling in your hands. The personal cost of this chase, the danger that now feels imminent, no longer matters. This ledger, this forgotten entry, is the truth. You will see this through. Every thread, every lie, every powerful enemy will be exposed. This isn't just about redemption anymore. This is about justice, sharp and unyielding, for the journalist and for yourself. The desert outside awaits, and you are ready to face its unforgiving expanse. The name Echelon Group still hums a discordant tune in the marrow of your bones. It's a phantom limb of power, invisible yet palpable, a whisper carried on the wind of privilege. And Phoenix. You trace the looping script on the journalist's recovered notes, the ink faded but the intent sharp. A phoenix rises from ashes, a symbolic rebirth, or a cover for something far more sinister. You sit hunched in the borrowed silence of a forgotten warehouse, the scent of dust and disuse clinging to the air, a familiar comfort in its anonymity. They cluster around a specific period, a time when the politician's star began its meteoric ascent. You recall the public narrative, a self-made titan, a beacon of integrity. Border operations. The phrase echoes. He dealt in information, trading secrets like currency. He was your only play now. You retrieve a burner phone, its plastic cool against your palm. The number is buried deep in your memory, a relic from a life you thought you'd left behind. Each digit pressed is a commitment, a step further onto the precarious tightrope you now walk. You speak in code, a language forged in the crucible of shared dangers. The voice on the other end is gravelly, cautious, yet a flicker of recognition warms its tone. It's not from your phone. A low hum, a high-frequency whine, seems to vibrate from the very structure of the warehouse. They've found you. Your pulse quickens, not with panic, but with a grim understanding. You've become too loud, too close. The hunter has become the hunted. You move with the predatory grace of a cornered animal, gathering the journalist's notes, tucking them into a worn satchel. The air outside is a sharp bite of urban decay, but the street offers no refuge. A black sedan, too clean, too silent, glides past the end of the alley. Your eyes lock onto the tinted windows, a fleeting glimpse of a silhouette. They aren't guessing anymore. They know. You weave through back streets, leap over fences, your breath catching in ragged gasps. Your old skills resurface, muscle memory guiding your evasions. You shed your jacket in a dumpster, duck into a crowded market, emerging on the other side with a cheap hat pulled low, a ghost in the urban sprawl. This is your life now, a relentless, breathless flight. The stark, utilitarian architecture stands defiant against the vast, indifferent landscape. Dust devils dance in the distance, mocking your urgency. The air shimmers with heat, the dry wind tasting of sand and secrets. You scan the perimeter, the faces of the uniformed officers, the transient travelers. Every glance is an assessment, every movement a potential threat. You spot in near a weathered service vehicle, pretending to inspect a tire. You approach, keeping your movements casual, your eyes constantly sifting the surroundings. They're watching, Marcus, the stranger murmurs, his voice low, blending with the drone of the desert wind. You're a beacon on their radar now. Echelon Group, you state, not a question. And Phoenix. His gaze hardens. A flicker of something close to fear in his eyes. Phoenix isn't a person, not exactly. It's a network. A pipeline. They move. Assets. Influence. Through the border, under the radar. Political favors, illicit goods, information. It's how they grease the wheels, how they ensure loyalty. And it's how they funnel resources to their chosen few, the ones they put in power. He gestures vaguely towards the desolate expanse. That journalist? He was digging into the source of the pipeline, where it began, and who had benefited most. He found a ledger, Marcus. A hidden account detailing transactions, dates, names. All coded, of course, but he was close to breaking it. This is it. A ledger. A financial record of the Echelon Group's Phoenix operations, linking illicit activities directly to their political pawns. The stranger shakes his head, a grimace tightening his lips. He never got it out. They got to him first. But he left a trail, Marcus. A breadcrumb. He knew they'd come for him. He tried to hide it, to encrypt it, to make it accessible only if he disappeared. He mentioned a dead man's switch to me once. A digital key, hidden in plain sight. A dead man's switch. The journalist, brilliant even in death, had anticipated his fate. This changes everything. It's not just about exposing Echelon Group, it's about finding that key, decrypting that ledger. Suddenly, a patrol vehicle, not one of the stations, but an unmarked SUV, slows at the entrance. Its windows are tinted black, reflecting the setting sun like malevolent eyes. The air crackles with renewed tension. Your allies' eyes widen. They found me here too, you breathe, a bitter taste in your mouth. No, the stranger corrects, his voice urgent, they found us. You're not just a disgraced detective anymore, Marcus. You're a target. And now, so am I. He shoves a small, encrypted data chip into your hand. This is what I managed to get out. Fragments. Not the ledger, but enough to show the pattern. The structure of Phoenix. It's a starting point. He claps your shoulder, a gesture of grim solidarity. Go. Now. Get out of here, Marcus. And don't look back. You don't need a second urging. The SUV is pulling into the lot, its engine a low growl. The desert wind whips at your clothes, carrying the faint scent of diesel and impending danger. You are alone, a hunted man, but armed with a new purpose, to find that ledger, to bring the Echelon Group's Phoenix to its fiery end. The chase has just begun, and the stakes have never been higher. The data chip, a sliver of cold plastic, feels alive in your palm, its secrets a pulsing heat beneath your skin. The low hum of the station's generators is a counterpoint to the distant wail of a siren, a sound that echoes the urgency gnawing at your core. Fluorescent lights hum above, casting a sterile glow on the linoleum floor. You move with purpose, your eyes scanning, searching for an overlooked corner, a forgotten terminal. Your past, a mosaic of failures and fleeting triumphs, has taught you resourcefulness. You spot it, a small, disused office tucked behind a rarely opened storage closet, its door ajar, revealing a dusty workstation. A relic. Perfect. The old monitor flickers to life, groaning with the effort. Its operating system is ancient, a digital fossil, but its isolation is its strength. No network connection, no prying eyes. You retrieve a worn USB adapter from your pocket, a habit from your days chasing digital ghosts, and slide the data chip into its slot. The screen blinks, then prompts for a password. This is it. The culmination. The weight of the world, or at least the small, poisoned corner of it you inhabit, rests on this moment. Nothing. Frustration, a bitter taste, coats your tongue. You lean back, the hard plastic chair creaking beneath you, and close your eyes. Think. Not a brute force, but a key. A personal one. You type a phrase, a sequence of words from a forgotten play, and press enter. The screen explodes with data. Encrypted ledgers, secure communication logs, audio recordings. Your fingers fly across the keyboard, sifting, opening, searching for the thread that binds. The ledgers are a labyrinth of shell corporations, offshore accounts, and staggering sums of money funneling into the politician's campaign. The dates align, the amounts paint a damning picture of influence peddling and illicit funding. Secure voice notes, timestamps meticulously recorded. You select the earliest one, marked days before the journalist's murder. A voice, calm and resonant, fills the quiet office. It is the voice of the politician, unmistakable in its practiced cadence. This is the voice you've been chasing, a phantom echo from the depths of the elite. The voice belongs to a highly placed advisor, a figure of immense, quiet power, known only to the deepest circles of influence. You recognize the precise, almost academic inflection. The advisor's words are precise, clinical. The journalist has uncovered too much. Their investigation into the energy contracts and the campaign's benefactors cannot proceed. Neutralization is imperative. Make it look like a random act. The consequences of failure are severe. The politician's response is deferential, almost fearful. Understood. It will be handled. Your gaze drops to the next log. A week later. The journalist is dead. The subsequent logs detail the cover-up, the manipulation of evidence, the silencing of witnesses, the careful crafting of the random act narrative. The politician's complicity is undeniable, a willing pawn in a much larger game. But the advisor, the architect of this intricate web of deceit, is the true enemy. Their voice, calm and assured, outlines strategies for discrediting any future inquiries, for burying the truth beneath layers of bureaucracy and public indifference. This is the mastermind, a spider weaving a web of corruption that reaches into the highest echelons of power. This is about dismantling a system, about exposing the rot at the core of power. You have the proof. Undeniable. Incriminating. Enough to shatter reputations and bring down empires. But exposing it passively isn't enough. They will find a way to discredit it, to spin it, to bury it again. You need to force their hand. You need to draw them out. You extract the most damning audio clips, the financial transfers, the direct orders. You compress them, encrypt them again, but this time with a key you will ensure is found if anything happens to you. Your fingers hover over the keyboard. This is the point of no return. You are stepping into the lion's den, willingly. The air in the dusty office feels charged, heavy with impending confrontation. You compose the message, each word a gauntlet thrown. I have everything. The journalist's murder, the campaign funding, the advisor's orders. I know who you are, and what you've done. Meet me at the abandoned factory on the old highway, 2 hours before dawn. Alone. If you don't show, or if I don't check in by sunrise, every word, every ledger, every audio log goes public. This is your only chance to control the narrative. Marcus Thorne. You hit send. The digital packet vanishes into the ether, a silent declaration of war. You close the old workstation, leaving no trace, the data chip now a mere memory in your pocket. You walk out, the desert night air a sharp contrast to the stale office, the vast expanse of stars a silent witness to your decision. You are walking into a trap, a deadly game of chess where your life is the ultimate pawn. But for the first time in years, the path ahead, though perilous, feels clear. You are ready. The air, crisp and thin, carries the scent of creosote and ancient dust. You leave the gravel lot, the tires crunching a rhythm beneath the weight of your purpose, the data chip a cool, inert presence in your pocket. Now, the real detonation awaits. Your fingers grip the steering wheel, knuckles white against the worn leather. The road unspools before you, a black ribbon under a sky ablaze with indifferent stars. The landscape shifts, the sparse desert giving way to skeletal saguaros and then, finally, the distant, shimmering haze of urban decay. Your destination, an abandoned factory, its silhouette a jagged scar against the pre-dawn glow. You pull the rental car into the shadow of a colossal, rusted water tower, its base choked with weeds. The silence here is different, heavy with expectation, not the desert's peace. The air tastes of metallic dust and old concrete. A single, flickering floodlight casts long, dancing shadows, distorting the skeletal frames of what were once towering machines. The main entrance, a gaping maw of broken glass and twisted rebar, beckons. A guttural challenge snaps the stillness. From the deep recess of the factory's interior, a figure emerges, broad and unyielding, weapon raised. Another materializes from the gloom to your left, a phantom in the industrial twilight. These are the enforcers, the blunt instruments of the architect, their faces grim masks in the shifting light. You offer no greeting, no plea. Your stance is low, your eyes scanning for weaknesses, for an opening. Marcus Thorne, a voice echoes from deeper within the factory, common resonant, cutting through the grinding tension like a honed blade. A ghost returning to haunt. You move, a blur of practiced motion. The first enforcer charges, a crude, forceful advance. You pivot, using their momentum against them, a swift, economic strike to the arm, a twist, and the weapon clatters to the floor. Before they can recover, you are past, a phantom yourself, seeking the source of the voice. The second enforcer, more cautious as fires, the shot ripping through the air near your ear, deafening in the enclosed space. The enforcers are good, but predictable. You are a ghost, a legend, reborn. You tackle the second enforcer low, a wrestling move born of street fighting and desperate training. A swift, precise strike to the temple, and they slump. You ascend a precarious metal staircase, the sound of your boots on the grating announcing your advance. His eyes, devoid of warmth, meet yours. You found your way back, Marcus, the architect says, a faint smile playing on his lips. He gestures to the empty chairs surrounding his desk, a grotesque parody of a corporate meeting. Please, join us. We've been expecting you. I'm not here for pleasantries, you state, your voice cutting through the performative calm. I'm here for answers. And you're going to give them. He leans back, an air of amused condescension about him. You always were so direct. Tell me, what grand conspiracy have you concocted this time? You step closer, the scent of stale cigar smoke clinging to the air around him. The journalist. Brilliant, driven. She didn't stumble into anything random. Money that leads directly to your organization, to you. The architect's smile falters, just a fraction. Speculation, Thorne. Unsubstantiated. No, you counter, pulling out a small, encrypted tablet you'd prepared. Facts. He had copies, backups, hidden in places you never dreamed to look. And when she got too close, when she threatened to expose the politician's complicity, your enforcers were sent. A botched job, wasn't it? A desperate scramble, an escalation. The murder was an accident, a panic, when she fought back, when she refused to give up the evidence. You watch his eyes, seeing the flicker of recognition, the subtle tightening of his jaw. The politician was a puppet. Your puppet. He needed to win, at any cost, to further your agenda, to solidify your power. The journalist was collateral damage, a loose end you tried to tie up, only to create a bigger knot. And what of this evidence, the architect asks. His voice now devoid of its earlier lightness, a dangerous edge creeping in. A ghost's fantasy? The data I just sent. The politician's involvement. Your organization's fingerprints all over it. It's out there now. Uncensorable. Irreversible. The public will know. A sudden, sharp movement. The architect's hand flashes, not for a weapon, but for a hidden panic button beneath his desk. A high-pitched alarm wails, piercing the air, and heavy steel doors begin to grind shut, sealing the factory. The enforcers, alerted by the alarm, are swarming. You think a digital file will stop us, Thorne, the architect sneers, his face contorted into a mask of pure rage. You've only delayed the inevitable. You will die here, and your truth will be buried with you. The first shots ring out, echoing wildly in the cavernous space. You dive, the air screaming past you as bullets tear into the metal railing you just vacated. This is it. The storm you unleashed has arrived, and you are at its eye. You are outnumbered, outgunned, but the truth you set free is already beyond their reach. The fight has just begun. The air screams past you, a violent whisper of displacement as bullets tear into the metal railing you just vacated. Around you, the cavernous space echoes with a symphony of destruction, the sharp cracks of gunfire, the ricochet whine, the frantic scuff of boots. You press yourself lower, the rough texture of the ground biting into your cheek, the cold seeping into your bones. A bullet whines past your ear, a close companion, embedding itself with a sickening thud into the reinforced wall beside you, sending a fine spray of concrete dust into the air. This is it. Their movements are practiced, predatory, a silent choreography of lethal intent. 1 against 3, in this echoing expanse, amidst the skeletal remains of what was once a secure facility. Not good odds. But you didn't come here for good odds. You came here for the truth, for the final, brutal confrontation. Just as you brace, preparing to move, a blinding flash erupts from a stack of crates to your left, followed by a deafening report that momentarily drowns out the cacophony. One of the advancing figures stumbles, a choked cry escaping their lips, their weapon clattering to the ground. A second shot, more controlled, more precise, finds its mark. The other 2 gunmen hesitate, their lethal formation breaking, a ripple of uncertainty passing between them. From behind the crates, a voice, rough and strained, cuts through the din. Drop your weapons. Federal agents. The cavalry. Not yours, perhaps, but aligned with the scales of justice, finally tipped by the weight of the evidence you'd unearthed. The remaining gunmen exchange a swift, silent look, a desperate understanding passing between them. The air still shimmers with latent violence. Boots scrape on concrete, approaching. You push yourself up, muscles protesting, the taste of dust and adrenaline coating your tongue. The Border Patrol agents, now fully armed, emerge from various hiding spots, their faces grim, their weapons trained. The man who had been shooting from the crates approaches you, his face a mask of exhaustion and professional duty. His gaze piercing. Marcus Thorne, he states, not a question, the words a pronouncement. You've made quite a mess. The sun, a relentless orb, was already climbing, its rays painting the desert outside in stark, unforgiving light. Sirens began to wail in the distance, a rising chorus of official response. Forensic teams, uniformed officers, and stern-faced investigators swarmed the scene, their movements precise, methodical. You stood amidst the organized chaos, a silent observer, your body aching, your mind a maelstrom of exhaustion and estranged. As if the words themselves were too heavy for his tongue. He was attempting to cross the border, using a false identity. His aide, too. The agent hesitated, then added, the one who escaped. We have a perimeter set. He won't get far. You nodded, a slow, deliberate movement. Not far, perhaps, but far enough to sting, to leave a loose thread in the tapestry you'd painstakingly woven. The architect of the journalist's downfall, the silent partner in the conspiracy, had slipped through your grasp. But the core, the rotten heart of it, had been exposed. Later, huddled in a small, sterile office within the station, you watched the news reports flicker across a small, dusty television screen. The anchors' voices, usually so composed, crackled with a palpable urgency. Images of the politician, his face etched with a grim defeat, flashed across the screen. The journalist's face, younger, vibrant, haunted, was juxtaposed with grainy photographs of the border patrol station, now a crime scene. The words spilled out: conspiracy, cover-up, assassination. The world was waking up to the truth you had fought so desperately to unearth. The public reaction was immediate, visceral, shock, outrage, a profound sense of betrayal. The very fabric of justice, you realized, was being rewoven, thread by painstaking thread, in the wake of your actions. You felt the exhaustion settle deep into your bones, a profound weariness that went beyond the physical. The adrenaline had drained, leaving behind a raw, exposed vulnerability. The images of the journalist's unblinking eyes on the screen, the echoes of the shots fired, the memory of your badge being stripped away, they all converged, a crushing weight on your chest. Redemption. Was this it? The cost had been immense, your reputation, your career, years of your life consumed by a singular, obsessive quest. You had faced your demons, confronted powerful enemies, and stared into the agonizing truth of a murder that had defined your downfall. You closed your eyes, the fluorescent light of the office pressing against your lids. The truth was free, yes. But freedom, you knew, came with its own heavy chains. The storm had passed, but the landscape it left behind was forever changed, and so were you. Your journey, Marcus Thorne, had reached its violent, cathartic crescendo, but the quiet aftermath, the processing of the scars, had only just begun. Dust, fine as powdered bone, settled on every surface, coating the official issue gray of the desks, blurring the edges of the maps tacked to the walls. You traced a finger across a laminated report, the plastic cool beneath your skin. The air, despite the building's air conditioning, still carried the faint, arid scent of the vast, indifferent landscape outside. The news cycle, a relentless beast, had already devoured the story, regurgitating it in breathless headlines. The politician, once a shimmering beacon of ambition, was now a fractured monument, his campaign shattered, his public image irrevocably stained. You had watched the broadcasts in the stark, unblinking glare of a monitor in a cramped office, a grim satisfaction blooming in your chest. Justice, in this instance, had been a blunt instrument, but effective. The core, the rotten heart of the conspiracy, had been ripped out for all to see. The public, initially mesmerized by the politician's charisma, now recoiled from the stench of his deceit, his carefully constructed edifice crumbling into dust. A federal agent, his face etched with the exhaustion of weeks spent chasing shadows and sifting through lies, approached your desk. He laid a slim manila folder before you, its contents sparse but heavy with implication. "Cleanup operation is ongoing," he murmured, his voice rough from too much coffee and too little sleep. "We got the public face, the one who signed the orders, who gave the speeches. But the strings, those are harder to cut." Your gaze fell upon a single, almost unremarkable name typed on a financial ledger summary tucked within the folder: Amelia Vance. It was a name that had surfaced before, a whisper in the periphery of your initial investigation into the journalist's murder, dismissed then as a minor player, a distant name on a corporate board. Not a public face, but a puppeteer. Amelia Vance. The daughter of a long-deceased industrialist, her name a ghost in the annals of forgotten wealth, a legacy carefully maintained outside the public eye. This was the architect who had slipped away, the one whose hands remained clean, whose name was too deeply entrenched in the bedrock of old power to be easily touched. The federal agent offered a weary shrug. We'll keep digging. But some roots run deeper than any shovel can reach. You nodded slowly, the knowledge settling within you, a bitter pill yet also a form of closure. You understood now. The true power behind the throne, not the politician himself, but the one who had made the politician, who had orchestrated the entire play from behind a veil of inherited influence. The journalist had seen it, had felt the invisible threads, and had paid the ultimate price for her insight. You pushed away from the desk, the cheap plastic chair groaning in protest. The desert air, cool now as twilight bled across the sky, offered a sharp contrast to the stale air inside. Stepping out, the vastness of the landscape swallowed the station's mundane existence. The sun, a bruised orange disk, dipped below the jagged horizon, painting the sky in strokes of crimson and violet. A profound silence descended, broken only by the distant, mournful cry of an unseen creature. You thought of the journalist, her fierce intellect, her relentless pursuit of truth. Her sacrifice had not been in vain. Now, the wound was scarred, not gone, but healed enough to bear. The ghosts, for so long clamoring for your attention, had finally grown quiet. They were not forgotten, but they no longer dictated your steps. The politician, exposed, would face his reckoning. The architect, while still out of reach, was known. The tapestry, though still with a loose thread, was whole enough to provide comfort, to show a pattern of justice, however incomplete. The weight of that unfinished business, the knowledge of Eleanor Vance, remained a quiet tension, a reminder that the fight for truth never truly ended, only shifted its battleground. But something else had taken its place, a different kind of authority, forged in the crucible of your own downfall and redemption. The path ahead was not clear, no grand blueprint laid out. Perhaps it involved the quiet pursuit of other truths, away from the glare of public scrutiny, away from the rigid structures that had once defined you. Perhaps it meant simply living with the knowledge you had earned, the peace you had fought for, a peace hard-won and fragile, like the desert bloom. The desert stretched before you, infinite and unforgiving, yet also promising a kind of freedom, a space unburdened by the expectations of others. You took a deep breath, the dry air filling your lungs, tasting of dust and distant rain. For the first time in a long time, the future felt less like a threat and more like an open road, waiting to be walked, its destination uncertain, but its direction chosen by you alone. Marcus Thorne, no longer defined by a past failure, but by the quiet resolve to seek justice, wherever it might lead.